Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for the invitation. I'm very delighted to be with you today. And actually, I just learned that I'm asked to give a broader perspective on the international scene, but I'm delighted to do so, to extend my 5 minutes introduction into 15 minutes. I think just seeing more than 100 people around here indicates how, I mean, you already mentioned that, how hot this topic is, the relevance and the interest of this topic, impact assessment or impact measurement. But even though it is really relevant and there's a lot of interest, we always have to see that this is a very young field. There's a lot of momentum, and we are just about to develop that. And I think this is a challenge, because I mean there's a pressure that we have to prove, that we have to show what we are achieving with our investments into the social sector. And on the one hand, we are still looking for the right tools, and we are working and experimenting with that. And I think one indicator is that we are all coming together to discuss our experiences, our approaches, and then to go out and do it even in a better way. What I would like to do is to give you a brief introduction to the landscape in Germany, the social landscape, and what we are doing about impact measurement in Germany. Secondly, I would like to introduce Phineo as an organization in Germany which has been just set up 2 years ago to promote the social sector by rigorous impact measurement. And this is actually the second hat I'm wearing. I'm not only trustee of the SIAA, but also CEO of Phineo. And then I will do the link to the SIAA, saying why is that organization so relevant for an organization like Phineo in Germany. Okay, so starting with the landscape in Germany, I would like to make just a few observations. First, and I think there is no doubt about that, we need a strong social sector. I think we only can work with the social issues we are facing right now when we have a strong social sector, like integration, migration, demographic change, and so on. But we need, and I think this is a good sign that the minister is here, we only can do that when we are aligned with the efforts from state and private sector. So only if all three sectors are working together, I think we will have the right tools to challenge or to work with the challenges in society. Secondly, the social sector is pretty big in Germany. Just to mention a few numbers. So we are talking about a sector where we have roughly 100 billion euros going into the sector annually. So we are talking, and this is the size of the automotive sector in Germany. You all know how important automotive sector is to Germany. So secondly, we are talking about a field where we have more than 550,000 NGOs registered in Germany. So it's a very broad field. And then roughly 23 million people in Germany are voluntarily engaged in Germany. So it's a huge field, but at the same time, it's very fragmented and it's very intransparent. And that is really a problem. I mean, on the one hand, I think it's a typical characteristic of the social sector that it's fragmented, that there are all these small things working in the niches. But on the other hand, to really have impact, we also need corporations working together. So here, intransparency is not really helpful. So this is one general observation. Another thing is, and I think that holds true at least for most of the European countries, we have a very strong role of the state also in the social sector. So about 80% of the funding comes from state funds into the social sector. But there is also increasing importance and interest from private sources, like foundations, private donations, companies being engaged with their corporate citizenship activities. Just to mention one number, so by now we have 70,000 foundations being in Germany, and the number is increasing rapidly throughout the last years. So there is a lot of momentum coming from private engagement, private sources, and from companies. And this comes along with new trends, new approaches. I mean, we all know these buzzwords like social enterprise, strategic philanthropy, inclusive business, impact investing, mission-related investment, social franchising, and so on. I think they all indicate that there are new trends, new approaches in the sector. But besides that they are mainly buzzwords, I think they have two things in common. A, they are all aiming at solving social issues, and B, they are all asking for the right tools to measure impact, because they want to show, they want to prove what they're achieving with their activities. And here I think it becomes very clear, I mean, not only for Germany, I think this holds true worldwide. I mean, there is a lot of momentum, there are a lot of things going on, but we need the right tools to make this more effectiveness and more impactful, whatever we're doing in the social sector. Now I would like to talk a little bit about Phineo, because I mean, Phineo was, let's say, born into this environment I've just described in Germany, and it was incubated in the Bertelsmann Foundation. Bertelsmann Foundation is the second largest foundation in Germany. And what we have seen, and I was director at Bertelsmann Foundation at that time, was that people did call us and saying, we want to do a donation. You know the social sector, can you give me advice where to give the money to? Or people and companies said, okay, we want to do something, but we are not quite sure what could be the right strategic niche in which we should go. So can you give us an advice? And we had no clue, I have to say. I mean, as the foundation was not really scanning the market, we had no clue what to give them as an advice. But we saw that there's obviously a need for information about where are the good charities, and also where should I be engaged. So what is the landscape, and where is our investment needed? And that was basically the point where we started, okay, we want to give those social investors, we called them, so basically private donors, foundations, and companies with their activities. We wanted to give those social investors a new way of orientation. And if you want to give new orientation, then you have to have an assessment tool to provide relevant information. So basically, and I know that this term is not really easy to use today, but we are talking about the kind of rating agency about the third sector. I will not use that word anymore, but in the first place, I think it helps to explain what Phineo were aiming at the first place. So we wanted to give information and guidance and orientation for social investors in Germany. And there were basically two challenges we were facing. The first one is a methodology, to find the right methodology. I will come to that later. Even more complicated was a political issue, because even though we didn't use the word rating agency, there were a lot of reluctant reactions, and people were afraid, in particular from the established third sector organizations, because they thought now we are introducing standards, and we are somehow killing all the innovations and small organizations in the sector. People were afraid that we are introducing tools from the private sector to the social sector without any adjustments. People were afraid that we are just measuring and only being very hard or cold-hearted and not really seeing what is really about the social sector. So we took that very serious, and we consulted a lot of organizations and to learn what do they really need. And also we had a good support from the political scene. Unfortunately, we don't have an office for the third sector, for example, like in the UK, but there is one ministry which is mainly responsible for the social sector, and the former minister von der Leyen, she was very supportive, and she brought together all the heads of the umbrella organizations of the social sector in Germany, and we discussed with them what would be needed, how should we introduce something like that, and with that I think we were able to learn what is needed and also to introduce it in the right way. So let me explain how we introduced it. So first, it was a question of what is the organization being able and being positioned to do that kind of rating, that kind of analysis. And of course, it cannot be only just one organization. So we brought together a very broad group of stakeholders, starting with us as Phineo. So we have on the one hand all the relevant organizations from the funding side in the social sector, like big foundations, Mercator, Bertelsmann, etc., and also the umbrella organizations of the foundations in Germany. Then we have private sector organizations funding us, like the German Stock Exchange, Deutsche Börse, or KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I think it's a good sign that here two competitors are coming together to build a new infrastructure in that field. A lot of banks are supporting us, because I mean, most people thinking about donations are in the first place consulting their advisors at the banks. So we had a broad group from the private sector, and also we were supported by governmental institutions. So we again had all three sectors coming together to set up this new organization. And what we are doing, and now I'm coming to the second challenge regarding the methodology, is we are not a watchdog, because we are not there to blame any organization. We want to enable NPOs, and we want to give guidance and orientation for the donors. And that is reflected in the way how we work. So we do sector reports. So we are going topic by topic through the social sector. We just launched one on dementia or on education and things like that. And we always see what is the challenge, what is the role of the third sector, also in combination with the private sector and with the state, and where are the fundings going to today, and where might be also funding gaps, so to give at the broader scale, at the macro level, the right orientation for donors so that they can find their philanthropic niche. And then having all that understanding and that experience with this field, we invite all organizations doing fundraising in this specific field to be analyzed. And just to give another number, I said we have 550,000 nonprofits in Germany. Out of those, only 20,000 are doing fundraising. At some point, we would like to cover all of them, but we are not forcing them. We are just making suggestions. So they can be analyzed if they want to, and they can do that without paying. So we have no barriers, and without risks, since we are not blaming them once they are not passing our due diligence in a positive way. So we make that kind of offer, and so far we have analyzed 500 organizations with a very rigorous due diligence, I have to say, which covers two dimensions. So the first one is the organizational capacity, so where we have a look at the governance structure. Just to mention the few criteria we are using there. So we are looking at the vision and strategy, the leadership and human resources management, the supervisory boards, finance and controlling, finance and fundraising, and transparency and public relations. So here we have a good sense of how is this organization being set up. And then we do not measure the impact, but at least we assess if there is potential to achieve impact. So we have a view on their real work. So we analyze the impact, like the target groups and the goals. So do they address the right challenge with the right tools? What is the concept and the approach? And do they have evidence of their results? So do they have means installed so that they can learn continuously while they are working? And do they have access and feedback from the beneficiaries and so on? So by that, we have a good sense of what is the impact of their work. And taking both dimensions together, the organizational capacity and the impact, we have a very good sense of if this organization is an organization which we can recommend to donors. So as I've said, we are not blaming organizations, so only the ones passing it positively, they are shown to the public and they're shown to the donors. Out of those 500 we have analyzed so far, we only recommend 100. So this is on the one hand, I think, indicating that we are analyzing in a very strong way and in a rigorous way. On the other hand, it also shows that there is potential for improvement. And these are the two aims of our assessment. The first thing is, of course, we want to show donors where are the really good ones, where I can give my money to without any doubts. But secondly, we also would like to give them hints and advices what they could do better. And we have just done an own evaluation, and the organizations are using our feedback to work on their approaches, on their organizational setup to improve their work. And this is, broader spoken, the general goal of impact assessment. It's not just to prove what has come out for the donors, but it's also, I think, one of the most relevant goals, a tool for the organizations themselves to improve their own activities. And we are trying to achieve both aims with our approach. So this is basically what we are doing right now since 2 years. So 30 people are now working for Phineo, and we are still hiring. So I hope that we will really help to introduce a new infrastructure for the social sector in Germany to improve and to achieve more impact in this field. As a last point, I would like to mention why we are very happy to have the Social Impact Analysts Association. And the reason is, I would say, threefold. So first of all, our methodology is not graved in stone. So we are continuously improving and working our evaluation methodology. For that, we need an international exchange. We had that at the beginning. For example, our methodology is based on New Philanthropy Capital approach from London, but there are no more organizations from whom we can learn. So we are very interested in learning from other impact analysts, how they are doing their work and what we can use for our work. The second reason is basically the SIAA is doing agenda setting. I mean, the ones being in this room know how important it is that we do analyze impact. But there are more people out there, and they have to understand that it's A, not a threat, and B, that it's really helpful. So we have to educate the charities, but we also have to educate the donors that they provide funds for impact assessment. Because, I mean, they cannot just claim that they want to see results. They also have to provide funds to do the analysis. So we need a strong umbrella organization to do the agenda setting. And thirdly, it is important for us to know who is out there in other countries. Because, I mean, we are also consulting donors, but we are just analyzing in Germany. But in case that we have someone being interested in doing something in Ireland, it's quite helpful to know who are the impact analysts working in Ireland, which I can then contact, getting advice from them for our donor we are advising. For that, we need an international exchange and an international umbrella organization. And all that together, and that is my last remark, leads to the situation that I'm very delighted to have you all here, because it gives us a feeling that we are not alone with what we are doing. So thank you very much.